So this is a video on how to install the top plate or take it off. It's basically the same process, just in reverse. So this is what the camera will look like with the top plate off. So I've cleaned the viewfinder, cleaned all the glass in here. So now I'm going to reinstall the top plate. So this is spring loaded. Sometimes you got to watch this doesn't pop off when you take the top plate off. It's actually got a little stop you probably can't see, but this front part here, that's basically the stop. So it's spring loaded. So it's got a little ratchet, so I won't do it now, but if I take, no, I don't really want to do that. Actually, I will. Okay, so say I'm winding it. So as you wind it, it'll ratchet one click at a time, basically for each frame. And that's held by the reverse kind of gear. When you pull this film door release, it'll lift this back off the ratchet. And because this is spring loaded, it'll automatically reset back to start. What I'll do is I'll just hold the top because I don't have this rewind lever on, film advance lever on. It'll probably just, the whole thing will pop off. And it's kind of annoying trying to get it to sit back where it wants to go. So hang on, I'll pop it like this. Okay, so you can see now, see how this part, see how that's spring loaded? And that's released the ratchet. So as you close the door, see how it pushes on this part here that then stops down on this ratchet. So if I let go of it now, it'll just naturally want to spool back and it stops there at start. So that's fine, just to show you that. So to install the top plate back on, I'll just give this a quick, just in case any dust is kind of settled while I'm sitting here. Quick blowy. So this will just sit back on top gently, like so. Also make sure that before you put the top plate back on, obviously the shutter release button is in there. It is sitting a little bit lower just because the shutter's jammed, I think. Let's put it back in. So that just sits on like this. So I usually put this lock ring on first just because that's like probably the most solid thing holding the top plate on. So once that's tight, you don't really have to worry about the top plate falling off. Not that it probably would, but I wouldn't really trust that tiny little screw there to do a hell of a lot. I'm gonna do that up, just kind of like hand tight, I guess, with my crusty nail. That's pretty snug. I'm just going to give it a little bit of a snugging with this. Not too crazy. That's probably good enough. Okay, once that's tight, I'm going to pop this back on. So this part sits in here. It's got a little tab. That tab sits in that little groove. And as you can see, that points to S for start. There is actually a tiny, you probably can't see it, there is a tiny little brass spacer kind of washer that sits in there. If you tip the camera upside down, that'll probably fall out. So just make sure that's back in there, because that'll, basically when you tighten this up, it'll stop it from crushing all that whole bit. Now because the shutter's jammed right now, that it's kind of the position it wants to sit in, like this. So I'll just pop it on like that, and then that just goes back on with this little retaining screw, which has that kind of toothed spacer washery kind of thing. Make sure that's in there too, so you don't do it up held tight. I've noticed if you do this up too tight, when you wind the film it's fine, but when you pull the release it won't actually spool back to start again. It kind of gets caught on the little plate. So you just, it doesn't have to be heaps tight, it's just snug, I guess. So that can get screwed up a little bit. That's pretty tight enough. So that's fine, that's fine. So now these spacers, one's flat and one's kind of got a little bit of a convex kind of shape to it. I don't really know how it's supposed to be because it fell out the first time, but I've been putting, so one of them's got kind of brass. I don't know if that's just from wear or if this is even an original part. It kind of doesn't look like it, but I've been putting that one on first, and then this one on the top. This one's a little bit flatter, and I think it kind of matches the profile a bit better of the rewind lever. So I would say that goes there, but who would know? So that goes in like that, and that just screws on. I've also noticed this thread isn't real great on mine. I don't know if someone's cross-threaded it or if it's just naturally kind of not good. So I will pull that up now, and I'll just hold that and just wind it till it grabs. And then to tighten it up again, basically just grab just a screwdriver or anything that'll just be firm, that fits into that film spool kind of thing, and basically just like tighten it up a little bit by holding the screwdriver till it's snug. That feels pretty good. I did notice those two little washers that I put in, I actually forgot to put them in when I took it off another time, and when I did this up it was real stiff and like kind of grindy and gross. So make sure you have those spacers in there, otherwise it's probably not going to be very smooth. So once that's back in, okay, so the lock ring's on, washers are in, this is done up snug, all those parts are back on, that's done up tight. So the final one's just that tiny little side screw, which you're probably not going to be able to see because it's tiny. I don't know why they make these screws so small and so annoying. Like, I would prefer if it was a larger, flatter screw. Like, I guess it's nicer to not see much of a screw, but sometimes they're really hard to get back into these little holes and they drop everywhere. And if you drop one of these on the floor, you'll never find it again. So I'll just usually reverse it until I feel like it's sitting in the thread properly. There, just you kind of just feel like a little bit of a click, and just snug it. Okay, so that's back on. It's all clean. So now I'm going to try and unstick this shutter, but I don't know how I'm going to go.